What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys have been doing well. Today we're going to be taking a look at 4 pre-code horror comics from the 1950s that no one else is talking about. We have the Harvey Horror's collected works. We have The Chamber of Chills, The Tomb of Terror, Witch's Tales, and Black Cat Mystery. Stay tuned. Alright, so if you are familiar with pre-code horror comics, you're probably familiar with titles like Tales from the Crypt, The Vault of Horror, and The Haunt of Fear. These were published over at EC Comics back in the 1950s. This is your grade A material. This is the cream of the crop. This is the best of what the genre has to offer. The Harvey stuff, this is your next tier down, your B, C, and D level material. No one's talking about the Harvey stuff. No one's doing any overviews. So I'm here in service for anyone interested. Let's see what these books have to offer. Let's see if they're worth your time. All right, we have the Harvey Horrors collected works published by PS Art Books. You can get these in hardcovers, soft covers, even in a nice slipcase edition. I have a mix of all of them, which we'll discuss in detail. They all have unique features. Harvey Publications came into existence in 1941. They had popular titles like Casper the Friendly Ghost and Richie Rich. They noticed horror titles becoming popular in the early 1950s thanks to EC Comics, and decided to put out a book of their own. The first book was Witch's Tales, June 1951. Later came Chamber of Chills, Black Cat Mystery, and in 1952, they released their final series, The Tomb of Terror. Now, these books were most noted for their graphic depictions of violence, sadism, torture, bondage, and perversion. I mean, it was the 1950s. I guess people were softer back then, more sensitive. I mean, compared to today's standards, I would consider these to be quite toned down. If I had any kids, I don't think I would have a problem as a parent giving them this material to read. I mean, it's all in good fun. So I will show off a little bit of each series. Unfortunately, I can't show it all. Keep in mind the timeline of all these books was from 1951 to 1954. We're going to start off with The Tomb of Terror, which had 16 issues. Most of the stories in here draw upon horror tropes and other familiar plots. You get zombies, The Walking Dead, vampires, different types of creatures and monsters, vengeful ghosts, werewolves, mutants, haunted ventriloquist dummies. I mean, the list goes on, right? Swamp monsters, tales of revenge, horror suspense, supernatural stuff, psychological stuff. I mean, it's a mixed bag of goodies. Supernatural revenge was becoming quite popular in the EC titles, and they tried to emulate that here, especially in The Tomb of Terror. For example, you may have a story about a wife who kills her husband, steals his money, runs off with a new lover, only to have her dead husband rise from the grave as a zombie and kill both of them. Typical revenge themes here. No one gets away with anything. Good triumphs over evil. This was a very popular theme. It works very well. There are also some crime, mystery, suspense, and sci-fi thrown into these stories, but it's mostly good old-fashioned horror. There's some voodoo and Satan worship stuff in here as well. Odd jungle stories. Some of it, is a bit cheesy as they were trying to follow in the footsteps of EC, but for the most part, it worked. I mean, it may not have been on the same level produced by EC Comics in terms of story and artwork, but, these stories are very enjoyable, especially the ones in The Tomb of Terror and The Chamber of Chills. Those are personally my favorites of the 4 series. Moving along into The Chamber of Chills, this series had 26 issues. I feel that Witch's Tales, Chamber of Chills, and Black Cat Mystery had a rough start at the beginning, but as time went on, the stories and art just got better and better. It seems like by the time they got around to publishing The Tomb of Terror, they had already perfected their formula. Some of the writers and artists that worked on these stories are unknown, even to this day, 75 years later. but there are some familiar names in the credits that do keep popping up. The best work, in my opinion, being done by Howard Nostrand and Bob Powell. Their work is very distinctive. After a while, you can spot it easily. It's of very high quality, very cartoony in a sense, with a lot of fine detail. But we also have work by Warren Kramer, Joe Certa, Mo Marcus, Abe Simon, and others. We also have some very striking and over-the-top covers that are quite iconic even to this day. The band The Misfits are known to use this cover specifically. We'll be coming across some very unique and fantastic looking covers later on in this video. So by 1954, the creation of the Comics Code effectively snuffed out Harvey Horror titles and other similar publishers pretty much overnight, forcing many publishers to change direction entirely, especially EC Comics that bared most of the brunt of this fallout. Comics were under fire at this point. They were getting a bad name. They were accused of having a negative impact on the youth, rotting their brains pretty much, accusing them of contributing to childhood disobedience and delinquency. You couldn't even have words like horror or terror on your cover. This was a bad time for comics, especially horror comics. Parents hated them. They were being rounded up to be burned. Awful, awful time. These stories follow the same formula. They are typically 5 to 8 pages long and have a twist-type ending. What is a twist ending, you might ask? Well, a twist ending is an unexpected ending, I would say. For example, you're reading a vampire story about a guy and a girl. Maybe you think it's the girl who's the vampire. Then in the end, it turns out to be the girl's mother, for example. Or you're reading a murder story about a ventriloquist. You think he's the murderer, but in the end, it turns out to be his stage show dummy. Stuff like that. Every issue contains 4 stories. Some can be pretty wordy. It takes me anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes to get through an issue. There's a title page at the start of each issue that gives you a screenshot sample of each story. If you're reading from the hardcovers, you get a breakdown of the creative team for each story, unless the persons are unknown. You don't get that in the trade paperbacks. These are called softies by the publisher, as well as trade paperbacks. In the hardcovers, you also get some fancy introductions, which talk about each series. They have some fun facts, some artwork. You don't get that in the trade paperbacks or softies. However, you do get glossy covers in the trade paperbacks, followed by matte style pages, which is more faithful to the reproduction. In the hardcovers, all the pages are a matte finish. Right now we are looking at some of the later work in The Witch's Tales. This series had 28 issues, and like I said before, had a bit of a rough start, but as it progressed, stories and artwork got much better. Now, the quality of the reproduction is fairly decent. Other than the scans themselves, these appear to just be straight up scans of the original comics, maybe with some minor cleanup, but some areas can seem a little muddy and difficult to read at times. Other companies are doing a much better job of reproducing similar collections at a much better price point. I'm referring to publishers like Fantagraphics and Dark Horse Comics. Otherwise, I do like the choice of paper stock that they used here. I'm glad that they didn't go with a glossy finish. The biggest problem with these books straight up is their price point. They are expensive and difficult to find. You rarely see this publisher in your local comic shops. If you do, the full retail price is close to 50 USD for a hardcover and 34 USD for a soft cover. But the soft covers contain less issues. Keep that in mind. They're not 1-for-1, so you'll need to buy an extra volume if you're trying to complete a series in softcover format, which cuts back on your cost savings. Right now we are looking at Black Cat Mystery. This is a series that underwent many different name changes, quite confusing, but this series specifically had 13 issues. This is volume 4. I didn't care for the earlier volume, so I just stuck with this one, where the story quality and art were at their finest. We're about to come across one of the best covers in pre-code horror history. Take a look at that. That's a beauty right there. Going back to pricing, 50 USD is a lot to pay for 5 or 6 issues, but it is what it is. PS Art Books, they're a UK-based independent publisher focusing on fantasy, horror, crime, and more. These books, however, are printed in China. I got really lucky and found these books locally at a used bookstore for 60 to 70% off. I think the material in here is worthy, especially if you're a horror fan, but I don't recommend paying full price for these books, but your options are limited. So search in used bookstores, search Facebook Marketplace, you might get lucky. You know, their website does have discounts from time to time, especially during the holidays. I remember seeing a buy two, get one free, so that's about 33% off. I believe they do offer free shipping, but the price threshold is quite high, and I'm not sure exactly what's in print. So if you haven't read the EC material already, like Tales from the Crypt, The Vault of Horror, The Haunt of Fear, then I'd say go ahead and read that first. And if you really dig the EC stuff, then I'd say start looking for the Harvey material afterwards. Because other than a series called Menace by Atlas, I think these are the next best thing in terms of pre-code horror. Fantagraphics right now is doing a good job reprinting some of the Atlas era material, but we'll have to wait and see what other titles they bring to the table. So to sum it all up, if you want these books, you're going to be spending a bit more money. They're considered to be B-level quality or lower. They might look a little muddy at times. You may not be as happy with the production quality that you're typically used to if you compare it to what Dark Horse Comics and Fantagraphics are publishing with their pre-code horror titles. But definitely keep your eyes open because these are quite interesting. They're very important books. Do not hesitate to pick these up if you find them for a fair price. There is also a best of collection of these 4 series in case you wanted to go that route, but I do like this material enough to collect in its entirety, minus the first few volumes of Black Cat Mystery. So before we go, I quickly want to look at 2 other pre-code horror collections published by Dark Horse and Fantagraphics so you have a better idea of the quality issues I'm referring to. Here we have a book by Fantagraphics titled Adventures into Terror. As you can see, it's very cleaned up. Nice white space where the text boxes should be. Here we have Harvey Horrors again, a little bit muddy. Color palette seems a bit off. The text balloons are not as cleaned up as in the other collection. I'll put up the Fantagraphics book again, just so you can have a look, see how much cleaner it looks. I also want to compare a Tales from the Crypt volume by Dark Horse Comics. These have modern colors with very glossy paper, as you can see in a moment. You can see a lot of glare coming from the pages. Also very clean though in comparison. I'm not too crazy about the modern colors and the glary pages, but it is what it is. I'm just happy to have this material collected. And we'll put up the Harvey books again just for one last quick glimpse. The Harvey books do look cleaner later on as they're released. This is the worst case scenario, but clearly there is a noticeable difference. So that's all I have for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, you learned something, you're thinking about checking some of these books out. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.